Aloha and good afternoon. I am finally doing another video because I wanted to address a whole bunch of stuff that it was on my Facebook page. There's tons and tons of comments and questions and requests and all that great stuff. I also wanted to let everyone know I did a revision video for the assimilation, acculturation, historical trauma, and intergenerational trauma as well, because the previous video, the audio was awful, and I tried and tried and tried to enhance that audio, and to no avail. Zero. So I redid that video. And the very next day, of course, wouldn't you know, I get the stomach flu. So that's why in that video, my voice sounded awful. And I looked, ugh. But I got the video out there. So that is that. So I'm sure everybody was wondering, what happened to this girl? Like, she was here, she was always online, blah, blah, blah. And like, boom, stealth gone. You know, exit left. So I'm going to address that in a few minutes. So I am going to show you this lovely file, and if you look at it, it's a police report. To be more detailed, there's 3 police reports in that. And the reason why there's 3 police reports in that is because ever since I put out those 2 wonderful videos, I have had, coincidentally, my house broken into many times, almost like every couple of days. Why? I don't know. Do they take anything? No. So, with that being said, I had to kind of go stealth for a little bit because I had to talk to my family, of course, because this affects everybody in my family, right? And we had to talk about things to determine what our next step is going to be and to ensure that everything is in place. So, with that being said, that was why I had to go stealth for a little while, and I wanted to make things in order. Now, does the other campaign, like, you know, nominee delegates, I don't know if that kind of stuff happening to them too. I'm not sure. But I can tell you from my perspective, it's happening to me and my family. So anyway, for the people or person that continues to break into my house and do these attempted burglaries and stuff like that, you're on blast now. Like, everybody knows what's going on. The police is kind of watching over my house to make sure everything continues to be okay and that me and my family are safe. So now the whole world knows what's going on. The other thing is, like, I'm born and bred on Maui, like on homestead land. I was taught to really believe, like, if I'm doing something that is in a positive manner and being really objective and I'm helping people and I'm doing the right thing in life, my kupunas and my akua and papa and wakia, they're going to always watch over me and keep me safe. So here I am, I'm doing more videos. I believe in this. I truly believe in our campaign. I truly believe, like, this aha is important. You know, I think wholeheartedly it's an important thing for our people. I believe that it's important for future generations. And I think it's important for us to be recognized as, like, federally for us. I mean, I really do. Then at least then we can get some monies and we can start helping our people, like, with education, with medical stuff, and resources. That's why I'm doing it. Like, nothing more, nothing less. You know what I mean? That's of great importance. So anyway, moving on. Now this is kind of like the comments and stuff that as I was looking over things, So, when I did the last video, everything that's in there, I didn't just pull it out from air, right, from the sky. I actually went and read federal regs. Like, that's all what I got. Was all that information was from federal regs. Plain and simple. So one of the things is like somebody had made a comment like, how do you think like we can have repetition after we put this stuff in? Well, it's because of, I got it from this. Like, ta-da! It is from June 29, 2015 from the Department of the Interior. They released its final rule to reform the process for Federal Acknowledgement Part 83, and one of the highlights, it specifically states here, it says, does not allow for repetitioning, in big bold letters, all capitals. It says, given the number of pending petitions as well as those that have not submitted complete petitions, the final rule does not allow repetitioning. Any petitioner that was previously denied federal acknowledgement under this process may not repetition. This includes any petitioners that have reorganized or been renamed or that are wholly or primarily portions of groups that have been denied under these or previous acknowledgement regulations. Sorry. I don't know if we'll say about that. Okay. So moving on, okay? One of the other things to remember is that when we're looking at doing this constitution or like when we're doing this convention, there's certain things to be really cognizant of, right? Like one of the things they had indicated is that under this section, right, we will be listed with Indian tribe. It's very specified. It's specified in this, the most recent thing that they had released, right, which was a 1026 deal. It says, the department seeks public comment on the scope and implementation of this distinction, and which refers to tribes and Indians, would encompass the Native Hawaiian governing entity and its members. So that's what they're going to place us under, okay? Further given Congress's express intention to have the department's Assistant Secretary for Policy Management and Budget, PMB, oversee Native Hawaiian matters as evidenced in the HHLRA Act of November 2nd, 1995, Section 206, 109, Stat 363, the Assistant Secretary, PMB, not the Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs, will be responsible for implementing this proposed rule. So that's who we're going to go and fall under. Okay? So that's really interesting, right? And it goes on to indicate that if the department ultimately promulgates a final rule along the lines proposed here, the department intends to rely on that rule as the sole administrative avenue for reestablishing a formal government-to-government relationship with the Native Hawaiian community. Okay, the regulations proposed here would establish a procedure and criteria to be applied if that community reorganizes a unified and representative government, and if that government then seeks a formal government-to-government relationship with the United States. And as noted above, Congress enacted scores of laws with respect to Native Hawaiians. Actions that also supported the department's rulemaking authority here, and there's like a laundry list of all kinds, like regulations and treaties, whatever, okay? Now, okay, so looking into the next section, okay, they go on and indicate that we, the federal government, powers over Native American affairs and with which the United States has an ongoing special political and trust relationship. Okay? It goes on to indicate that they have a procedure, already established with Native Americans, and that they're going to continue to follow that guide, but they're just adding verbiage to include for Native Hawaiian people. Here's another interesting thing that they talk within this whole entire long thing that they came out with, is that Congress has employed two definitions of Native Hawaiians, which the proposed rule labels as HHCA, eligible Native Hawaiians, and Native Hawaiians. Okay? The former is a subset of the latter, so every HHCA, eligible Native Hawaiians, is by definition a Native Hawaiian. Okay, that makes sense. But the converse is not so true. Okay. Some Native Hawaiians are not HHCA eligible Native Hawaiians. So they actually already have come up with two definitions for us. Okay, so that's one thing to look at, which is really interesting. So that's a section right there, right, that we have to really look into. Now, it goes into here, which is the important thing like I talked about in the previous video. Okay, 50.13 of the proposed rule does, however, set forth certain minimum requirements for reestablishing a formal government-to-government relationship with the United States. The Constitution or other governing document of the Native Hawaiian government must provide for periodic elections for government offices, describe procedures for proposing and ratifying constitutional amendments, and not violate federal law, among other requirements. The governing document must also provide for the protection and preservation of the rights of HHCA beneficiaries. In addition, the governing document must protect and preserve the liberties, rights, and privileges of all persons affected by Native Hawaiian government's exercise of governmental powers in accordance, this is the important part, with the Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, okay, 25 USC 1301, okay. So they essentially saying we still have to meet those kinds of criteria, okay. Then it goes on to indicate there is a submission and processing of the request. In addition to establishing a set of criteria for the Secretary to apply and reviewing a request for a Native Hawaiian government, the rule sets out the procedures by which the Department will receive and process a request seeking to establish a formal government-to-government relationship. Okay, it continues to go on and indicate the proposed rule explains that the government-to-government relationship with Native Hawaiian governing entity is the same as that with federally recognized tribes in the continental United States. Okay? And it makes it very clear in here that what was back then with the formerly existed with the Kingdom of Hawaii will never be no more. Not going to never happen. That's what they talk about in this. The Native Hawaiian governing entity would remain subject to the same authority of Congress and the United States to which those tribes are subject and would remain ineligible for federal Indian programs, services, and benefits, including funding from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Indian Health Services, unless Congress expressly declared otherwise. Okay, it goes on to talk about all the stuff that people keep asking. Okay, the proposed rule also clarifies that neither this rulemaking nor granting a request submitted under the proposed rule would affect the rights of the HICA beneficiaries of the status of HICFA lands. Section 50.44F makes clear that reestablishment of the formal government-to-government relationship will not affect title, jurisdiction of status of federal lands and property in Hawaii. Okay, it continues to go on to discuss that it does not affect many of the things that people are actually talking about in the forums. Like a lot of people are asking about, okay, well, can we utilize, like if we go through this, that we can get the lands, right, and stuff like that? The answer is no. No. Just like some of these tribes right up here, they get like casinos up on their tribal lands and stuff like that, right? And so the money they make off of that, they then utilize it for resources for their tribal people, right, and stuff. We cannot. If you read this, we no can. Okay, it's very interesting. Okay, so if you look under the proposed rule, okay, it says, for the reasons stated in the preamble, the Department of the Interior proposes to amend Title 43 of the Code of Federal Regulations by adding new Part 50 as set forth below. Get all this stuff that we're going to have to meet, okay? So, it talks about, in detail, all these things that we need to meet, and it very specifically states, and that in clearly states that we will not be able to violate certain federal laws, and that we're not going to be able to get certain lands and stuff like that. Very much so. So, all the questions that you guys were asking and like saying, where did I come from, where did I get it from, and all of this, it all came from federal regulations. It's very clear in what they are indicating, what they're not proposing, what they actually putting in here is that what a lot of the tribes are getting up here, we will not be getting, and we're not eligible for, because when had Cayetano versus Rice back in 2000, because they deemed us as a race, based off of that definition, we're not eligible for a lot of the things that's listed here. And if you continue to read, they indicate a lot of the lands and stuff are exempt. They are exempt from being affected. Like there's a part in here that says about taking. We cannot take land. That's exempt. Like there's tons of stuff in here that indicate that. So anyway, with that being said, I hope this helps clarify a lot of things. I will put the links up again. I mean, I've had the links up. I will put it back up again and attach it to this so you guys have the ability to utilize that and click on it and you guys can read it, especially now that they've extended the election dates and stuff like that. Hopefully more people will then be able to read up on this so they can see it and be like, holy moly. So have a good day, you guys, and continue to fight, y'all, because we need it so that future generations, not just us, but future generations can be heard and can be recognized. Have a great day, you guys. Aloha.